Hi, everyone. I'm Ryan Moranville, and today I'm here with a colleague, an expert, and someone who's gonna share some of their expertise with us, Grace. Hi, Grace.
Hi, Ryan. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Yeah, I'm happy you're here as well. So, why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself, where your humble beginnings, and how you ended up here?
Sure. So I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee. From there, after graduating undergrad with my BA in history, I went on to serve in the Peace Corps as a youth development promoter. Did that for 2 years. And then shortly after coming back to the States, I decided to get my master's in political science with the Stevenson Center. And that's where I currently am now.
And where did you serve in Peace Corps?
I was in Costa Rica.
Ah, pura vida. Nice.
Yeah, pura vida.
And, speaking of your time here in the Stevenson Center, I'm aware that you're in your professional practice. So, can you tell me about your professional practice, what it is, and where they are, and kind of what you do?
Sure. So I have a pretty interesting position in that I'm what's called a research practice partnership. So what that means is there's a kind of healthy balance between a lot of the research-based activities and the practice recommendations we give for local organizations. So on the research side, I'm affiliated with Tufts University, the Center for Information on Research, the Center of Information on Research and Civic Learning and Engagement, otherwise known as CIRCLE, which is why it's so hard for me to get the full name down because I'm so used to calling it CIRCLE. And on the other end, the practice side, I am with the Illinois Civics Hub, which is the entire hub for civic education in the state of Illinois. Um, so in that partnership, I am involved in a couple of different projects. In those projects, I am mostly working on the Illinois Civics Middle School study, which means we are working on providing research and feedback to schools based on the new legislation that was passed in Illinois, which requires middle school students to complete a semester of civic education before continuing on to high school. This was an extension of a House bill that was passed, I believe, in 2015, which required that high school students had to have a semester of civics or US government before graduating. So what we do is we kind of research, do qualitative and quantitative research for different middle schools in the area. Right now, I'm currently doing some student focus groups as well and some teacher interviews just to kind of see how the civic learning is happening amongst students and if there are any differences between civic learning and civic teaching with teachers. So, and then also on top of that, I help monitor the Democracy Schools program, which is a statewide program for Illinois high schools in Illinois. And there is about 80 schools in the Democracy School Network, and 1 in 6 public high school students is a member of a democracy school in Illinois. So yeah, it's pretty fun.
Sounds interesting. And so, are those kind of all the projects that you're working on? Is because of this partnership, and that's really your main role? Like, how many people do you work with, or do you have a lot of contact with other people in that role?
Yeah, so I definitely work with some research partners from Circle on a lot of the research and data associated things. So I have about 2 people I meet with regularly on that end, and then 2 people I meet regularly with on the Illinois Civics Hub end. And my contact with the Democracy Schools and Network is pretty constant.
Right.
Right now, I am working with several renewal schools. So the Democracy School Recognition Program happens to where schools apply for it. They have to undergo a rigorous kind of evaluation of their school and civic learning and competencies amongst their students. And that process is renewed every, I want to say, 4 or 5 years. So it's a constant commitment to civic learning in schools, and teachers have to administer student surveys and teacher surveys so they can kind of gauge where civic learning is happening. And the thing about democracy schools that I really appreciate is that they emphasize that civic learning and civic development happens across disciplines. So not just in the history classroom, not just in the US government classroom, but students can develop civic skills in math classes, science classes, and fine arts. And so they kind of work to measure where these competencies and elements of high quality civic learning are happening. According to the House bill that was passed, Illinois requires really 4 elements of high quality civic learning, including current and controversial issue discussion, simulations of democratic practices, informed action and service learning, and the 4th one, which is slipping my mind right now, but it's important. But yes, we kind of monitor the progress of each of these areas and how they're starting to look in their classrooms. Informed action and service learning, simulations of democratic practices, current and controversial issue discussion, and democratic institutions is the 4th one. So students learn, the basic building blocks of both state, local, and federal democratic institutions and how they can use their voice and choice, not only in the classroom, but in communities as well.
Well, if I've learned one thing from you, Grace, is that students have voice and using it is very important for these youths. So that's great. That sounds all very interesting. During your job there, how have you applied, some of your knowledge or skills gained from your education here with Illinois State?
I definitely think basic methodological training that I've received from the political science department has been really helpful in my position, understanding ways to go about different questions when I'm designing surveys and focus group questions. Really thankful I got my IRB certification out of the way early out, so it saved me a lot of time, having to do that during my practice. But I think really most of the knowledge I have now comes from my personal research. There weren't too many people in my department that had really any background or expertise in youth civic engagement specifically. And so that's kind of been fun to navigate on my own. And then going from an environment where no one really seemed to know what I was talking about or why I was talking about it to being exposed to individuals who talk about this every day has been a really fun and interesting transition. And it's really helped develop my knowledge more, both as a professional and an academic. And it's been a really rewarding experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's because of the classroom setting as well. Like there's just so many different people's areas of exploration and things. So yeah. And so what do you see yourself for the next steps?
I would like to definitely continue my career in education policy research. I'm currently looking at a couple of different positions for policy analyst positions or data scientist positions with organizations that either do consulting for schools or school districts or work directly with the US Department of Education on informing federal education policy. I'm hoping to still continue education policy research in the field of civics and social studies, but I would consider maybe branching out to STEM or one of those areas as well. But I really like the rewarding feeling of getting to interact with students and understanding different ways they learn and helping teachers understand that as well and different practices that they can use in the classroom to kind of enhance student learning.
And what advice do you have for new professionals?
So I'd say some advice I have for new professionals in this field is definitely, for me personally, what I've always tried to advocate for in my career as a youth development worker and community development worker is definitely look for opportunities to increase student voice and agency in these decision-making processes. Um, it's not so much advice as it is, please, please do it to find opportunities for youth. I think it's so important to make education policy work sustainable that you have to include students and hear what they have to say outside of just asking them questions. They need to be given opportunities to share their information and thoughts with authentic audiences and really be given the opportunity to develop those skills they need to be lifelong civic participants in society. Um, and just general professional advice, don't take yourself too seriously. Recognize that everything can be used as a learning opportunity and it's okay to make mistakes and try again. Um, yeah.
That's great advice. And thank you for sharing. So take care.
You too. Thanks so much for having me, Ryan.
Yeah, tune in every week. Bye, Joanna.